Our next speaker is Aaron Hutcherson, who is the most fantastic food writer and recipe developer. He lives here in New York City. His website is The Hungry Hutch, but he also writes for many publications, including the New York Times, Food and Wine, Easter, Thrill List, Food 52, and very recently he announced that he has joined the Washington Post. Just so you know, he has the most amazing recipe for peas and halloumi cheese. It's absolutely fantastic. I tried it in July. But this is Aaron in his own words. He says, "I like to document the stories that haven't been written down and find the reasons why certain things have come to be." That is so beautiful. Thank you, Aaron. I can't wait to hear what you say. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Also in New York, there was a tornado warning yesterday, so there's all types of weather. But being someone who cooks and writes about food and recipes, there are lots of times when mishaps happen in the kitchen. And smoke is involved. And the following is a mostly true story that was the first to come to mind, sort of based on my vague recollection from a few years ago. So here we go. So I am in New York City, and I came in here to the city right after university to work in finance. But soon enough, I realized that my soul was being crushed and I needed an escape. So like many before me, sort of the age-old trope of finance guy leaves the industry, goes to culinary school to work in food. So that was me. I went off to pursue my dream, quit Wall Street, and all within the same week of graduating culinary school and quitting my finance job, I started working at a food magazine during the week and then cooking on the weekends. So it was 7 days a week for about 4 months. And then I ended up cooking in the restaurant that I was working at on the weekends for the rest of the year, just sort of trying to figure out my life and what exactly had I done. Was I happy with this decision? But for anyone who's worked in the restaurant industry will know that it is very grueling. And I got burnt out. So I was like, let me take a brief escape. And I found a job posting for a cook and a baker in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania at a summer camp. And so it sounded like a good thing for me to do. And I went. So there were about 150 or so people that we had to feed every day. And there were a handful of us there to do the job. The head chef was a woman named Brenda. She gave me some like drifter vibes and sort of hopped around and cooked places and had fun and moved all around the country. There's myself. I was in my early 20s, a year out of culinary school. Thought I knew what I was doing, and sometimes I mostly did. There were a couple of exchange students who were a lot of people in Europe. They come to America to work here for the summer. And so there was these two young women that were tasked with being the dishwashers for the summer. There's a student from Johnson and Wales University, which is a culinary school. There was a man named Bob, I think, or just going to call him Bob for now, who just needed something to do for the summer. He was retired and wanted to cook. So there were a handful of us, a lot of people to feed, but cooking in bulk, after doing it for a while, we got into a groove and it became fairly easy to do. It was 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I was mostly responsible for like baking and desserts just because I had an interest in it and wanted to explore that more. I became slightly camp famous for some of my cookie recipes and a s'mores pie that I would make for everyone. But it being summer, there was also lots and lots of grilling and taking advantage of the great outdoors and cooking outdoors, because if you can cook outdoors, then why wouldn't you? So that meant lots of hot dogs and hamburgers and ears of corn and thick planks of sweet potato, and tons of food. So we got into a little bit of a groove, and the summer just went on and went on. Um, and it was a lot of fun, but also it was a lot of people outside of Brenda, who was the leader, who were just sort of, we had an idea what we were doing, but perhaps weren't the most experienced all the time. And some of us were probably only a couple of years out of attending the camp ourselves, based on our age range. But we made the most of it and just sort of did what we had to do. Then one day, on one of our grilling days, I forget what it was we were cooking, probably just some hot dogs and hamburgers again. But Joanna, who was the other student from Johnson and Wells, decided it was her turn to take on the grilling responsibilities. Now, she was a pretty good cook. She knew her way around the kitchen, knew how to use all the different equipment in the kitchen and come up with great tasting flavor combinations and things like that. But it turns out she wasn't the best with grilling. For anyone who has a gas grill, like when you go to light it, you hear that tick, 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 tick. And then hopefully after a couple of ticks, it lights and it's a success. So I think Joanna heard many of those tick, 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 ticks, and it just kept going, and there was no fire. So doing what you're not supposed to do, she lifted the lid, took a look, tick, 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 boom, and there goes her eyebrows. Now, thankfully, it didn't go away completely, but there's just a little singe of smoke that wafted off. She was definitely a little traumatized, perhaps also equally embarrassed, and ended up leaving the job shortly after that incident happened. So suffice to say that grilling isn't for everyone, and that you should definitely be careful. And after that, only Brenda, the head chef, and I took care of the grilling responsibilities for the rest of the summer. But we all learned a valuable lesson to not listen to too many ticks. In case of too many ticks on the grill, step away and consult a professional. Thanks for listening.